What if I told you that you could make more money in a single day than the entire year before it? Well, this method isn't just slept on, it's underrated. And that method is doing events. Now, just before I get into the nuts and bolts of it, I'm James Smith. I'm originally a personal trainer and I ran my first fat loss seminar all the way back in 2017. But 5 years later, I sold out the Hammersmith Apollo and then the Sydney Opera House. And I put a link in the description to this for my upcoming events in Sydney and Dubai. So please click on those if you want to get tickets and attend. I started my life doing events for the very reason you're probably thinking, to grow the brand, to get myself, no, for free flights. My parents live back in the United Kingdom. So back in 2017, I was a bit skint. I was thinking, how could I get a trip home to see my family and get the business to pay for it? I'm going to do an event in Bracknell, which is where the budget gym I used to work at was. I remember driving past a hotel quite frequently to go to rugby training. I called them up. Can I book an event space? Then I'm pretty sure I went onto Eventbrite for the ticketing. And with 12,000 followers, I went on sale. And the way I saw it was even if the event didn't make any money, that was fine. If I got my flight for free, it was about £550 to fly with Etihad in economy. I was laughing. Now, this is not financial advice, but for any of you listening, anything that you can say is exclusively and wholly for the business, it's not free. You can get your business to pay for it. So if you wanted to buy a MacBook Pro just for work, if you bought it in your personal name, it might cost you £1,500, but then you'd have to earn over £2,000, pay the tax on it, then have the money to buy the MacBook. But if your business pays for it, that doesn't happen because what it does is it reduces your profitability. Businesses have to pay tax. It's called corporation tax. But when your business spends money on essentials, such as a MacBook Pro, the government look at the amount of profit that you made for the year and it's reduced because some money went towards purchasing things. I wish that my mate Diran understood that when I bought him business class flights. He was like, yeah, calm, bruv. Business expense. I'm like, that doesn't mean it's free. But the beautiful thing about any of you that are in the world of content creation is that technically, again, not financial advice, if you were going to go to Ibiza and create lots of content, do a bit of networking, go to some meetings, maybe scope out some event spaces for a seminar that you're running next year, you could turn around and say, look, I didn't even want to go. I had to go exclusively and wholly for the business to look at venues. So your first event doesn't even have to make money. That's the beautiful thing about this. If I'm completely honest with you, my first 2 tours that I ever did lost money, but we always repeated the same mantra. If we give people a really good experience, next year they'll come back, but with friends. And the second thing I need to be honest about, this Stripe payment here of what, $56,000, that wasn't just from the event, I'll be honest. That actually had nothing to do with the event, kind of. That's just from the sales I made from that day. All the ticket money for that event didn't even go into that Stripe account. For any of you that have ever come to my business events before, I used to run them for personal trainers because before I had a $20 million drinks brand and a business mentorship and an investment into the UK's biggest TRT company. Before all of those things, it was just coaches. And I'd open my PT events. I'd say, hey guys, do you want to hear a joke? Working on weekends. No one would laugh because so many personal trainers in that room actually had to work weekends, which I still think is crazy. And I was like, hey guys, do you want to hear another joke? Working after 5 p.m. And most personal trainers were like, that's our bread and butter time to do PT. I was like, that's the biggest lie you've ever been fed. Because the gym is the most busiest after 5 p.m. And the experience that you give someone in that time is the worst. I was just going to queue for a leg press while you pay me £40 an hour. Anyway, if you're a PT working evenings and weekends, there's a bundle that I put in the description below so you can stop doing that. Back to the events. We first need to distinguish B2B versus B2C. B2B means business to business. So for my events in Sydney and Dubai, that is me working with other businesses. I can charge more money for that because people coming can just download that invoice, give it to their accountant, and it's a tax deductible. Again, exclusively and wholly for the business. So even if I was charging $2,000 for the day, their business can pay for it. They don't have to earn the income, pay tax on it, etc. When we look at B2C, business to customer, you're probably going to go higher volume, lower ticket point. People are paying for that with their post-tax income, and it's going to be slightly different things you're going to do. So let's first look at B2C events. So that started off with my fat loss seminar in Bracknell, sold 187 tickets. I'm going to overlay some footage of that event now. As you can see, I look back at myself and think, wow, like, first of all, quite impressive. Second of all, what are you wearing? Third of all, why have I got such a podgy face? And yeah, even the fact I was organized enough to have a videographer there, flipping mental. Then after that, in 2019, got my first book deal. So we started doing book tours where we do signings at the event. So I get to the event like 3 p.m, sign everyone's books, do the live event, and then we go out and get pissed with them afterwards. We actually threw several after parties, and the after parties were so much fun. We actually thought, okay, let's do another in-person B2C event. And I worked with my events team to create something called IFS, International Fitness Summit. Now it's been offline for a year, but it's coming back next year, bigger, better, and in HD. And IFS was crazy. It's where we got all some of the best people in the fitness industry, brought them together, did Barcelona in our first year, then we did Lisbon, then we did London, bloody good times. Now, just before we get into the business to business thing, I actually have a confession to make. So much of what I teach you now, I actually learned from my first business talk. In 2015, it would have been in the Doubletree Hilton in Victoria. Now, this is going to sound really petty and pathetic, but there's kind of an OG in the fitness industry that I learned so much from. And I'm so grateful to everything that he taught me, to the point that he quite literally was like my dad of the fitness industry. And I used to go to him whenever I had any issues. I used to go to him whenever I had any troubles. I actually used to go to him whenever I had any wins. I studied under him, and I would probably admit that I was one of his golden boys. Out of all of us that were doing his course, I was the one that just seemed to be making leaps and bounds. And every time I could, I'd drop him a message and be like, mate, your course has changed my life. Anyway, without going into too much detail or getting into a legal court case about it or whatever, I once went to him for help and it backfired on me. And to be perfectly honest, it was completely my fault. I'd made the mistake. But at that time that I went to him for help, even though it was my fault, he kind of screwed me over. And I was in a time in my life where I had just broken up with my girlfriend, who I was living with and whose visa I was on. I had to leave Australia in 2018. I didn't know if I was coming back. And I borderline begged him, and he still pressed me. And for that reason, I'll never mention his name in any of the videos. And even though I learned so much from him, went to his days, I used to get sweaty armpits at the end, just shaking his hand, because he was my idol. And now we don't talk. And it's a shame, because the amount of business that I would have sent him since 2018 would have been crazy. I've actually got his name in the notes. I thought I'd get to a point of forgiveness and actually just big him up and give him the credit, but no. I learned so much on that day with the guy that's not to be named. It's like Voldemort. We could just call him Voldemort from here on in. Literally changed my life. And at the event, it wasn't just the slides, the presentations, the things we were going through. It was that I was actually in front of him. I was like nervous around him. I was like, oh my God, it's like an aura. It's like an energy. But it was that he is just a normal human being. And then during lunch, you could just chat to him and be like, wow, a normal guy. So there's the energy of actually just being with people that you respect in the industry and actually being like, oh, what are you up to this weekend? But the second was looking around at all the other people at the event. I was like, oh, in my head, everyone in the fitness industry was, super jacked, super buff, in amazing shape. I look around and I'm like, these are just normal people. In my head, the fitness industry was full of demigods. But when you get there, you're like, oh, actually, all of my peers are exactly the same as me. None of us are in competing bodybuilding shape. We're all here on a Saturday morning trying to better ourselves. So the energy I was getting from not only the person taking the event, but from the other people in the room was amazing. It was motivating. I was getting gassed up. The only person in that room that was in crazy shape was Jamie Alderton. And that was the first time I met him. So that would have been 2015. Then I think about other people hugely influential. For instance, even Paul Moore, some of you might know, some of you might not. Guy from South Shields in the UK. I learned a lot about my email marketing from Paul. I hired him as a coach. He's opened some of my live events. So how cool is that? Someone that I studied under. A few years later, I got him to open my live events and speak at my events because of the value that I think he brings to it. And even the guarantee. So for instance, the Sydney and Dubai event, I've said that if you come to the event, you don't love it, by lunchtime, it's not everything you thought and more, let me know. You can leave the event. I'll refund your ticket, your flights, and your hotel. That is Paul's guarantee that got me to go to one of his events. So anyway, it all comes together. And even if I look back to some of the fat loss seminars that I went on, which was still business to business because I was learning about how to help my clients lose fat, there are still things from the slideshow that I saw on that day that I still regurgitate now. One of the slides went, fat loss isn't donut to broccoli. Fat loss is donut to half a donut or donut to low-calorie ice cream. And that stuck with me so well in person at the event that I can still regurgitate it, nearly 11 years later. Wow. So let's get into perfecting the perfect business-to-business talk and get through some of the key principles that you might want to understand before doing one yourself. First of all, we have the duration of the talk. The golden rule is you're better off leaving people wanting more than giving them too much. But actually at these events, even though the talk shouldn't drag on too much, you're probably going to be there the whole day. So in my mind, the talk's probably going to go from 10 till 3. We're going to get an hour for lunch. And in that time, I'm going to jam pack as much information as I can. What we're going to talk about, get onto that in a second. Then 3, 4, maybe 5, depending on the event, the location, whatever. I'm going to give people the opportunity to leave. Because some people have come from far away. They need to get a flight. They need to get a train. They need to get back to where they are. But then the rest of the time, signing books, getting selfies, talking to people. I usually don't leave the event or the venue till about 7 p.m. So I will arrive 8 a.m., maybe 7 a.m. to do laptop check, make sure that the presentation works and that everything's all right, there's a charger. I might be in the event space for 12 hours. By the end of it, my social battery is so cooked that when I get home and see my parents, I just don't talk to them. My dad's like, how was your day, son? Good. That's it. Now the talk, usually I create from scratch based on the last 3 months in my Discord. So whatever people are talking about in the Discord, whether it's landing pages, conversions, new software, new trends, whatever it is, they're going to be the main components of it. I like to treat each business day as if most people came to the last one. So it's not just one talk that you keep doing and doing and doing. I will sit in front of a blank canvas and I will think about what are the things that I've been talking about recently? What are the problems that I've been solving? How could I best address that to people? Because there's that kind of pop culture element of people worrying about the same same things. If we can tap into that, we can really, really hit some nerves. When it was B2C with the book events, I'd spent a year writing a book, it's like 360 pages. I was like, okay, what are the 10 best lessons inside this book? I would then make them into something in the show where I could say, right, here's the lesson, here's an analogy, what kind of joke can I put in there? So it's a bit of a pacing where it's like TED Talk, fingering jokes, TED Talk, fingering jokes. Anyone of you that have been to a live event, you might have known that. Any of you that haven't, fine. Then another question, you're like, okay, so how do you make this different from what's in the course already? Well, the issue is you actually don't. You take what is working for people and helping them, you bring it to life. And the idea of the talk to me is actually to get questions out of people. So I'm not just there like clicking through slides. I'm going to talk about something. I'm going to have my opinion. Then I'm going to ask people about theirs. The whole point of a good talk to me, especially B2B, is what can I talk about for 5 minutes to get questions out of the audience? Then when the questions come out to me, I just answer them on the spot. And again, I can always just say to people, I don't know, but rarely does that happen. And I just make sure that I segment enough time so we can talk about content, sales process, email marketing, whatever it is. And a lot of the time, if those are into 4 quarters, a bit like every good book should have 4 different stages in it. Someone says, oh, ask a question about, can we wait on to the very end? Because that's going to be the 4th thing we talk about today. We go into different cohorts about different parts of the business strategy, whatever it is, do it that way. With the B2C events, I would often go through the chronological order of the book, because if an editor and I work together for a year to make sure the information should be in a certain way, the show should be the end. Because if an editor and I are going to work for a year to make sure that everything's in the right order, in the show, it probably makes sense to have it in the same. Then it's always good to have something to finish the show with to get people to leave and think about. Now, with the frequency of these events, you can start to spot patterns and trends of the feedback you're getting from the audience about what problems they're solving. And then you can amend the talk for the following week or month or year, whenever you do it. So if we now take a step back and we go into point 2, how can we use in-person events to grow our actual physical business? First of all, we're going to run signups. Out of those signups, we're going to get a lot of data. Out of that data, we're going to be able to sell tickets. Now, with the money you're going to get from the tickets, first of all, you should have enough for the venue, to pay the venue. And you might have some to cover your ad spend that you might have done some paid ads running signups. Not to mention at this stage, you probably should have an email list and some warm leads that you can go out to just through email marketing to get people on board. For me, very much at the moment, I actually take venue cost, hire, AV, whatever it is, ad spend, running signups, I get that number, and then I divide it by the amount of seats at the venue, so that if I sell out the venue, I'm at a break even. For me, it's not so much about needing to make money from the event, because I know that maybe 50%, maybe 60, 70% of the people at the event just want to come for the day. They don't want to be sold anything. I want my margins to come from people that buy into my program, not people that buy to sit on a seat. The second thing that a lot of people overlook is the impact of getting content at that event. What I'll do now is I'll show you some content from the first business event I ever did in 2019. Now, what was interesting here, for this venue, we got the venue for 24 hours. So I decided, okay, let's do a B2B event throughout the whole day. So I did 10 till 5 at the B2B event, went back to my hotel in Shoreditch. Pretty sure I had a shower, a wank, a little nap, and then came back for the evening event that went from like 7 till 10. So the venue cost stayed the same. We ran a B2B and a B2C event. Fucking exhausted at the end of it. So then you've got content from previous events, like we used in the onset of this video, to sell future events. And the more content you have, the more clips you have. You might even have a clip from the event that bags you a client online 6 months down the line. And often, even though I've earned heinous amounts of money to do these events, even that event where I did, $56,000 in a day, truth be told, at the end of it, when I looked at all the content we'd got for paid ads and everything else, I would have done it for free. Don't tell my manager that, because he'll be like, oh. Now, one of the best things that you can do, not just at the end, but during, is have a Q&A section, especially for B2B. For your B2C, sometimes we would do a Q&A at the end. One thing I would say is if you're in an audience of maybe several hundred people, you can just throw a QR code up on the screen, get people to ask questions during an intermission, then you can pick the best ones to answer. This also just stops you from someone spending 2 minutes asking a question that you don't know the answer to. So why is it that I'm here proclaiming you should do that, but so many other people don't do these events? Well, one, fear. People are just worried they're going to do an event and 10 people are going to show up. Fine. Social battery. Some people are just not prepared to spend 12 hours with people. And 3, some people would rather do just a mastermind in Bali or Dubai. And again, I'll tell you why I don't do this, right? Let's say I want to make 100 grand for the day. What I do not want to do is have 10 people that pay 10 grand. And although I've been told to do this loads, that stresses me out. If you're paying me 10 grand for a weekend, I feel like you own me. And if you're like, James, can I have a minute? Yes. Anything else? Do you want a massage? I just don't want that stress. I'd rather have a room full of people that spend like $600. I'm like, look, you're going to get your money's worth no matter what, or you get your money back. But 10 grand each, just not my bag. But another way these in-person events can grow your brand and your business is a lot of quote unquote influencers think their audiences are dumb or stupid or inferior or whatever. Our audiences are incredibly smart and they pick up on the smallest of cues. They're going to watch you for hours and they're going to see who the real version of you is, because you can't hold a facade for that long. The way you banter, you interact with someone, your level of empathy, your manners, everything. And it's at that moment in the book signing where you can show off your idiosyncrasies, the things that are unique that make you you. It's only at that moment that people can make a snapshot judge about who you are. And if you are the person they want you to be and you're genuine, you're polite, you've got someone who's going to buy into your brand for life. 8 years down the line, they're going to go, yeah, I met her. She's amazing. She's so kind. You should do her. Oh my God, you should buy her book. You should buy her jump rope. Oh, it's the best thing ever. There's even the little times where you're at the place of the event, say you're in Newcastle, Leeds, Sydney, or whatever. People kind of know you're in the area. So when they see you in the street, they're like, oh, James, I'm coming to your event tonight. And rather than just being like, cheers. Oh, where have you come from? Oh, it's amazing. I won't hold it against you. Birmingham. You have this huge opportunity all the way around the event to really get people to buy into what you're doing. And if you're naturally like that, great. So what should you do with the information that you're learning in this video? Well, first of all, you should start to think about the first event you could do. Now that I've told you it doesn't even have to run out of profit, that should alleviate quite a bit of the stress. I would obviously say come to one of my events so you can just copy me and see how I do it. But ultimately, for some of you that might be in your infancy, this is where I'm going to be pretty much pitching in my mentorship. There's going to be a link about working with me in the description, because in there, to sell an event, you can't just put an event out. You need people to buy into you and your brand. And to do that, you need to accrue a lot of goodwill. The only way you can accrue a lot of goodwill is by helping people. So if you're someone who's got 10,000 followers or more and 2,000 people on your email list, you can start looking at event spaces and get going. But for those of you under 10,000 followers, you just haven't done enough of the very things that I teach. And very briefly, content. We need to be putting out content on several platforms, helping people, solving their problems, and engagement is a good metric of how good that content is. I've never seen people create amazing content for long periods of time and never take off. We need some component of email marketing. Again, not just for your business and your brand, but so that when you launch an event, you can say, hey guys, I'm going to be in London on this event. Do you want to come? Ticket sales, ding, 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 ding. You're going to need landing pages that highly convert so you can send people to them so they can buy your product and your offer. Again, because you're going to have to do that with tickets the same way you do it with your service or your product. And here's the lesson from events you can apply to your whole business. Your first event will not make $56,000 in a day. But if people want to know why I like to think my events are good or that I don't get nervous before them, it's because I've done loads of them. I've been on 4 tours, B2C, done maybe a dozen business events in person. No one watched my content for years. Now they watch it. No one bought my stuff for years. Now they buy it. If you can treat events just like any other component of your business, like email marketing, like content, like growing an audience, you just compound. Then one day you could do an event that when you leave, you email everyone that came with an offer and you get enough money to buy a Lamborghini or something less materialistic. So you've got your PT bundle in the description. I've given you the work with me link, and the third one that's going to be there, it's going to be called 30 Ways in 30 Days. The truth is, I've not built out the lead magnet to capture your data for events. But if you are interested in coming to one of my future events that's not in Sydney or Dubai, you'll have to sign up on that one. And I hope that not all of you are personal trainers, because I'm trying to move away from that niche. But if you are a personal trainer, watch this video here, because it will help you maybe even more than this one.